WCNC Charlotte, this is Flashpoint.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. Well, more major setbacks for Charlotte's transportation agency. The interim CEO of CATS getting grilled by leaders over why it took so long to report 3 light rail derailments in the past year. We also learned this week the agency skipped safety inspections for light rail bridges and parking garages over the past few years. Now, that is on top of bus driver shortages that forced routes to be cut last summer, safety concerns, and a complete shakeup of senior leadership. Now, the Metropolitan Transit Commission asking Charlotte City Council to hire an independent investigator to look into CATS. Joining us now, Mecklenburg County Commissioner Leigh Altman, who also serves on the Metropolitan Transit Committee, who oversees CATS. Commissioner, thanks for coming on Flashpoint. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, so I feel like the derailments is really sort of just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we also learned about skipped safety inspections when it comes to the garages and bridges. Last summer, as you know, bus routes were severely reduced because of bus driver shortages, complete turnover in senior leadership at CATS. It's probably a question you've asked yourself. I know you've asked yourself, but what is going on at CATS?
Well, I would take exception just to one thing. I don't think the bus routes needing to be reduced are a function of all these other problems. I do think that had to do with labor shortages. But everything else you described seems to have a common thread of difficulty with doing the basics, keeping up with maintenance, doing inspections, just the very basics for safety.
Do you feel like it's safe to ride the light rail right now?
Well, you know, we have a letter from NCDOT dated March 2nd, and I'm just going to read a few excerpts of it because it's not my opinion and it's not my language. NCDOT said on March 2nd that CATS is currently operating trains which have surpassed the manufacturer's recommended axle overhaul thresholds, and it has not conducted any form of risk assessment or hazard analysis to quantify the risks, and similar such language. So I'm not an expert in these matters, but I can tell you that I will not feel comfortable until I have someone from NCDOT square what they said earlier this month with what CATS said yesterday, that they operate a safe transit system. I just don't understand how you square those two things, and I need NCDOT to do that, to give me the confidence that I believe the public needs.
So for the public looking to you as a commissioner and as a member of the MTC, I mean, what would you tell people if to say, hey, you know, Commissioner, should I ride the light rail? What do you tell them?
You know, I can't say more than what I've already said. You know, I have a career as someone who worked in the arena of consumer protection, and I have a state government official whose full-time job is safety, using the language that they just used this month. I can't square the two, and I think it's an urgent matter for CATS to ask that NCDOT representative to come present to the Metropolitan Transit Commission, or better, to provide that written assurance to explain the two. That's would probably be the most efficient resolution that would help me advise the public.
As of this week, you all are calling for an independent investigation. There clearly is a lot to look at. What's your biggest question at this point about the sort of organizational structure of CATS?
Well, so the organizational structure of CATS is, you know, there's a chain of command. You have the CEO of CATS that I presume reports to an assistant county manager who reports to the assistant city manager who reports to the city manager. And the city manager reports to the full city council. The CEO of CATS also reports to the MTC. So there's no ambiguity around the reporting structure in terms of daily maintenance and functionality and having a functional system. I think the issue got confused when some people brought up the larger issue of our governing structure, which definitely is a good question to ask. And I do think there are important issues there. I have issues with it, but I don't think it goes to why maintenance wasn't done. And I think bringing that up right now sort of muddies the water when we need to be very clear about what led to a breach of safety.
It's not a governance issue, at least in your mind.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So do you think it's a culture issue? Is that part of it, the problem?
I raised the issue initially when I sent my letter to the city council and to the MTC and to CAT's leadership. I raised the question that I believe there must be a problem of culture there, because I am sure, I know county employees and they are the very best. And they care. And I have no doubt that the employees of CATS are exactly the same. You don't go into public service unless you really care. And so I'm confident that they do. So the fact that nobody came forward tells me that something else is at work. And I am deducing that must be a culture where there is not space to do that in a safe way. And that is, a theory I've raised that I think needs to be explored.
Do you feel like everybody that you're dealing with and interacting with is telling the truth?
I have no reason to think otherwise.
Another big part of this in my mind that I don't know that's gotten a lot of attention, although Braxton Winston tweeted about it, I saw, is the fact that all this aside, and we've just listed a lot of challenges and a lot of problems, the city's also pursuing a $13 billion transit plan. For taxpayers out there, or the skeptics in Raleigh that we know exist, can we possibly move forward with that while all this is happening? I mean, should that transit plan be put on hold for right now?
Let me explain something. I moved from Atlanta, Georgia, where it is miserable and impossible to get from point A to point B 12 plus hours a day. And when I came to Charlotte, it was a lovely relief. We do not want to turn into Atlanta. And we are growing so quickly that if we don't build mass transit into our planning, we will have a terrible quality of life. We will not have the ability for people to easily access job centers. We will make the accessibility of affordable housing even more difficult than it already is. We will not make progress on our clean air goals. And I can go on and on. So I have been from day one extremely committed to us achieving a robust and world-class mass transit system. And we can't abandon that. But the fact that we have a transit system that is in crisis and has failed us over and over again is something that we cannot soft pedal or overlook.
The critics of the transit plan shouldn't be looking at you for a reason or for any comfort. You're saying we should be able to do both.
I'm saying thank you for asking. I'm saying we have to do both. If we are actually interested in serving our community, we have to improve the problems with CATS. And I think it's clear I am unafraid to point out and pursue everything that needs to be addressed so that we deliver the services we owe our residents. But we also have to ensure that we have mass transit for the future. And these two things, the fact that this crisis is not helpful for our mass transit future, it's not what I wanted, but that doesn't mean I can turn a blind eye or soft pedal something that is very serious. So we have to do both.
You have to do both. All right. Mecklenburg County Commissioner Leigh Altman. Commissioner, thanks for coming on Flashpoint. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Giving school districts more say of when they start classes. Still to come here on Flashpoint, the state lawmaker from Gaston County pushing for an earlier start.